How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yudal, Daf 14 of Masechta Nazir, friends. Daf 14 is kind of interesting. Alright, we're going to start in Daf Yud Gimel with Beis at the Mishnah, about 5 lines into the page. Hareini Nazir, v'Nazir k'shiyeh ben. You hear this? A fellow says that he's going to be a Nazir. Okay, so it means that starting now, he's going to be a Nazir for 30 days. V'Nazir k'shiyeh ben. And oichet, when I have a son, I'm going to be a Nazir. His chemone es shelo v'chakach lo ben. If he started, being, so he's not right. He said already Nazir v'Nazir k'shiyeh ben. So he said he's going to be a Nazir. So he now starts his Nazirus. 20 days, let's say, into his Nazirus, his wife gives birth to a son. So now, right? So mashlim es shelo v'chakach mone es shabano. So he completes, right? We said that after 20 days, let's say, his wife gives birth to a son, so he completes his remaining 10 days of Nazirus, and once that is done, he shaves and the ganze Zach, and then he starts Nachama, a second Nazirus. Hareini Nazir k'shiyeh ben. If a fellow said that he's going to be a Nazir when he has a son, v'Nazir, and additionally, he's also going to be a Nazir. Now, he doesn't yet have a son. His wife hasn't yet given birth. So he says, okay, why should I wait around twiddling my thumbs? Let me start being a Nazir. So he's chemona es shelo. So he started being a Nazir. V'achakach nod lo ben. And after 20 days, let's say, his wife gives birth. Now, he had initially said that he's going to be a Nazir when his wife gives birth. He also said he's going to be a Nazir regardless. So he started being a Nazir for 20 days. His wife now gave birth. So maniach es shelo. He interrupts his current Nazirus, umona es shabano, and he does 30 days for the Nazirus of his son. And then afterwards, he completes the remaining 10 days of Nazirus. And the interesting thing in this case is that he would not get a haircut after his son's Nazirus. Right? Meaning he started his own Nazirus for 20 days. His son was born. He then interrupts his Nazirus. He's a Nazir for 30 days for his son. At the end of that, at the end of his son's Nazirus, he does not get a haircut. He first completes the remaining 20 days of his initial Nazirus, and then he just gets a haircut for all of it. Although I do think that he brings 2 rounds of korbanos. Says the Mishnah, says the Gemara, Ba Rave. Oh, friends, you ready for this kasha? Rave asked the following kasha. Omer Hareini Nazir la'achar esem yom. The fellow says that he's going to be a Nazir in 20 days' time. Ume'achshav me'ayom, and from now, 100 days. Pa-para-para. You hear that? So first he says that he's going to be a Nazir with an offset of 20 days. It's only going to start 20 days from now. And he's also going to be a Nazir starting now. So ma'u, kevin da'alein me'a be'esim lo shalmin. Do we say that, look, he said he's going to be a Nazir in 20 days from now. And then he says he's going to be a Nazir for 100 days starting now, but those 100 days are obviously not going to fit into the 20 days that he has before his Nazirus begins. So lo chaylin, so do we say that it doesn't even start now? Wait till after the Nazirus and then start the 100? O Dilma, or perhaps, kevin de islay gidul seir livasof chaylin. Or do we say, yeah, but even after his Nazirus, meaning even if he starts the 100-day Nazirus now, for 20 days. And then in 20 days from now, he's going to have to interrupt it for 30 days in order to do his other Nazirus. Right? The first Nazirus that he mentioned. But after that Nazirus is over, he's still going to have another 80 days remaining, which is more than the 30 that you would need in order to get a haircut. So it works. So do we say that since there's not 20 days before since there are only 20 days before his initial stipulation of Nazirus kicks in, so he doesn't get started on the 100 days at all? Or do we say that no, let him get started with the 20, and then do the 30 for his Nazirus, that he said that he was going to start with an offset of 20 days, and then after those 30 days are up, let him complete the remaining 80 days. V'tibayile Naziris mu'etes. Why are we asking about when there is, 80 days, right? Why are we talking about when there's 100 days? Why don't you talk about even a smaller amount, right? What if there was only a minimum Nazirus? What if there was a 30-day Nazirus? But he said that, so first he says in 20 days from now, I'm going to start a 30-day Nazirus, right? A Stam Nazirus. And also a Stam Nazirus starting now. So ask about that, right? There isn't, right? There's only 20 days until he starts his next Nazirus. There isn't enough time for for a full Nazirus before the Nazirus starts in 20 days from now. And after the Nazirus, there actually won't be enough time to have 30 days. There's only 10 days remaining after that. So chada migo chada coming by. So we're asking two things basically. Imtin se lomar Nazirus mu'etes. Kevin da asar yomen hu di yiserin. Lo yisalik le'alein asare. So do we say that, look, if it's a 30-day Nazir, right? So meaning if he says in 20 days from now I'm going to be a Nazir, and I'm also going to be a Nazir now, in which case if he starts doing the 20 days of Nazirus now, and then he interrupts it to do his other Nazirus for 30 days, and there's only going to be 10 days remaining after that, so we say forget about it, wait till after the Nazirus, right? Wait 50 days and then do your other Nazirus. So, but Vaday Nazir Mea Yom, but certainly in the case of when there's 100 days, and if he does 20 now, and then does the other Nazirus, there's still 80 left, came the Islay Tamnin Yom in the Vasov, Salkanle. Since there are 80 days afterwards, so Beseder, let him get started now. Although, or not, Vimtim Salomer, and if you're going to say Chayle, that you can start now. Omar, Hareini Nazir Lachar Chaf Yom, what if he says that he's going to be a Nazir starting in 20 days from now? Me Achshav Nazir Olam, but from now I'm going to be a Nazir forever. Mahu, Michailo Ale, do we say that he starts being a Nazir forever right now? Olo or not? Or do we say that, well, since by a Nazir Olam, you could do Ataris Nadarim and get out of it, so therefore we could say it even starts now. Omar Ireni Nazir Shimshin, La'acher Esrim Yom. A fellow says that after, right, that in 20 days from now I'm going to be a Nazir Shimshin, where you cannot do Ataris Nadarim. Me'achshav Nazir Stam, and from now I'm a Nazir Stam. Ma, what do we say? Hacha lo efshir l'tshulei michayla, since the Nazir Shimshin you can't do Ataris Nadarim, so maybe it doesn't kick in, right? So it doesn't kick in now. Olo, or does the initial Nazirus not kick in now? Okay, fine. All right. Amar Kimoshe b'shiva ba'adar mai. Okay, so this is unrelated. If he says that I am like Moses on the 7th of Adar, what's he saying? Is he saying that I'm sad because it's the day that Moshe Rabbeinu died and I want to be a Nazir? Or is he saying that no, it's the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was born and I'm happy? So is he basically saying that he's a Nazir or not? Shot minayu kadmaisa, at least answer the first question, Rava's initial question, which was, if he says he's going to be a Nazir starting in 20 days from now, and then he says he's going to be a Nazir for 100 days beginning now, how does that work? If a fellow says that he's going to be a Nazir starting in 20 days from now, but from now 100 days, Mona Esrim, he counts 20 days of the 100-day Nazirus, and then he becomes a Nazir for 30 days, like his stipulation, and then he fills in the remaining 80 days in order to complete the initial Nazirus. Okay, Nitma Bime Bno. Okay, friends, now what happens? You ready for this? So, what happens in the event that he says that he's going to be a Nazir when he has a son? And then he says, and he's also going to be a regular Nazir. So he starts being a regular Nazir now. After 20 days, his wife gives birth. So he puts his initial Nazirus on hold, and he becomes a Nazir because he said that when he has a son, he's going to be a Nazir. So he becomes that Nazir. While he's in the Nazirus for his son, he becomes Tmei Meis. Somebody throws some dead meat at him. Right? Somebody had died, and somebody scooped up a kazayas of flesh, and he threw it at the guy. And he says, "You're it." And he's like, "Dude, don't you realize I'm a Nazir? That's not right. That's really not cool." Or maybe he just went to like a funeral or something. Okay. Yikes. Nidma b'mei. So if he became tamei while he was a Nazir during his son's Nazirus experience, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Soser. Rabbi Yochanan says he's got to start all over, right? Meaning if he had done 20 already, and now he's in the middle of his the Nazirus experience for his son, and he becomes tamei, he's got to start mamish. The Nazirus for his son is cancelled. The initial 20 days that he'd done is cancelled. He's got to start all over. Rish Lakish Amar says, Rish Lakish Eino Soser. No, it only undoes the Nazirus of his son, but the initial 20 days that he had done, assuming that was how far he got, would remain intact. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Soser. Rabbi Yochanan says all of it is thrown away because Chada Nazirus Arichtahi. It's really just, we view it as one long Nazirus. And therefore, when it becomes tamei, he's got to start all over again. Rish Lakish Amar Eino Soser Nazirus Didei L'chud v'Divrei L'chud. Whereas Rish Lakish says no, when it becomes tamei, it only undoes the Nazirus of his son that he's currently in the middle of, but it doesn't touch his own Nazirus because it's an Andra Zach, it's a separate thing. An Andra Zach as opposed to the Zel Bazach. I think the Zel Bazach would be the same thing, and Andra Zach I think is a different thing. Alright. Every so often I learn a Yiddish word that may or may not be used correctly, but I add it to my word bank. Nitma b'mei tzaraito. What if he becomes tamei when he's a mitzvah, right? So for example, he's a Nazir, and then he gets tzaras. So now you only have to start all over again if you become tamei meis. Tzaras you wouldn't have to start over again, but it would be suspended. The Nazirus would be suspended while you are a mitzvah. So Nitma b'mei tzaraito. So if when he was a Nazir he got tzaras, so his Nazirus is suspended and he's now a mitzvah, and then as a mitzvah he becomes tamei meis. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Soser. Rabbi Yochanan says he's got to start all over, meaning the tumas meis is not just tumas meis as a mitzvah, but he's also a Nazir, and therefore he's got to start the Nazirus all over again. Rish Lakish Amar Eino Soser. Whereas Rish Lakish says no. It doesn't affect the Nazirus. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Soser Dab Nazirus Koi. Rabbi Yochanan says that it affects the Nazirus because he's a Nazir at the moment. He's a Nazir, and in the middle of his Nazirus he became a Mitzvah, but he's still in the middle of his Nazirus term, and if he becomes tamei meis, he's got to start all over again. Rish Lakish Amar, Rish Lakish says Eino Soser. It doesn't undo the Nazirus because Tzaras L'chud v'Nazirus L'chud. No, he's a Mitzvah right now. Just focus on the Mitzvah. Don't worry about the Nazir. So his Nazirus doesn't. He remains intact. We need both the case of when he's a Nazir as well as a Nazir when he's a Nazir for himself as well as for his son, as well as when he's a Nazir and also a Mitzvah. If we only talk about where he's a Nazir for himself and for his son, in that case Rabbi Yochanan says that if he becomes tamei meis when he's doing the Nazirus for his son, it's soser not only Nazirus for his son, but Eichid his own Nazirus, because Shem Nazirus Achasi, because at the end of the day we're talking about Nazirus. We're talking about his Nazirus, his son's Nazirus, but it's all talking about Nazir. Aval, Beha, Ema Modadei the Rish Lakish. But in the second example, where he's a Nazir and then he contracts tzaras, where there are two different ailments, Nazir isn't an ailment, but two different sort of conditions. So maybe Rabbi Yochanan would agree with Rish Lakish that if he becomes tamei meis as a mitzvah, it wouldn't affect his Nazirus, and therefore we need both cases for Rabbi Yochanan. And if we only have the case of mitzvah, Rish Lakish, in that case Rish Lakish says that the Tuma only undoes the tzaras but leaves the Nazirus intact because they're Andra Zach and they're different things. But when it comes to the Nazirus, his son's Nazirus, I would think that maybe Rish Lakish would agree with Rabbi Yochanan that the Tumas Meis would undo also his own Nazirus, because it's all Nazirus. Maybe you'd agree with Rabbi Yochanan that it undoes all of it. So Kamash Malan, that no, in both cases, Rabbi Yochanan says that it undoes everything, and Rish Lakish says that it only undoes sort of the current predicament, whether that's the Nazirus for his son, whether that is the Tzaras. Nitma b'yom gidul seir. What does that mean? Who could tell me what that means? It means that if he becomes tamei on the yom gidul seir, what does that mean? Who could tell me what that means? In order to get a haircut as a Nazir, you had to have grown your hair for 30 days at least. Which means that if on day 29, some sunflower seed guy comes and he cuts his hair, so even though, he didn't want his hair to be cut, just like a sunflower seed guy just kind of came in and cut his hair, so then tough luck, dude. Like, you need a minimum of 30 days of growth before you can get a Nazir haircut. So therefore, so then what are we talking about? So then he has to wait another 30 days, right? So if on day 29 a sunflower guy comes and he cuts his hair, so then he can't get a haircut the next day on day 30 or day 31, as we're going to see. So he's got to now count another 30 days. So he's basically extending his Nazirus now for another 30 days or whatever until he has 30 days of hair growth. What if during that time he becomes Tameh, during this extension? You hear the kasha? So Nidma B'yom Gidul Seir, if he becomes Tameh, during this extra, extension, Rav Amar Eino Soser. Rav says if he becomes Tameh during this extension, he does not need to start all over again. Afilu, the Rabbi Yochanan the Amar Soser, and even according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that, if he has his son's Nazirus, right, Nazirus for himself and for his son, he would have to start all over again. Hanimile Echadukoi ben Nazirus. That's because at least at the point when he became Tameh, he was a Nazir at the time, right? Even if he was another Nazir for his son, but he was a Nazir, so it undoes everything. Gidul Seir, Mishalim Nazirus Hu. Whereas this Nazirus extension, while we're waiting for his hair to grow for 30 days, that is just an extension of Nazirus. He wouldn't have to, it's not like he became Tameh when he was an actual Nazir, and he would not have to start all over again. Ushmuel Amar Soser, and Shmuel says he would have to start all over again. Afilu Rish Lakish, the Amar Ein Soser, even according to Rish Lakish, who says that it would not be so. So for example, if you have his Nazirus and the Nazirus for his son, and then he becomes Tamei Meis while during the Nazirus for his son, Rish Lakish says that it wouldn't undo everything, it would only undo the Nazirus for his son. That's Hasam Shtei Naziros, because over there were two distinct Nazirus. There was his Nazirus and his son's Nazirus. Those were two separate Naziruses. But over here, Chada Nazirusa. But over here it's all one, right? It's an extension of a single Nazirus, but it's all one Nazirus, and therefore Shmuel argues that he would have to start all over. Rav Chizda says of Chizda Akol Modim, that everybody agrees him Kidesh Seyar Bidom, that if it's his, as we're going to see, I think in 2 days from now, that Lamaisa, we already saw it the other day, right? That a Nazir gets his haircut on day 31. So if it's day 31 and he offers his korbanos, but he hasn't yet gotten his haircut, and he becomes Tameh. He already offered the korbanos, hasn't he gotten a haircut, and now he becomes Tameh. Ein lo takone, there is no way for him to fix his predicament at this point. Aliba the demand, and we say we don't understand. How does this work? Aliba the Rabbi Eliezer. If it's according to Rabbi Eliezer, I don't understand. Since Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that a Nazir must get a haircut. If he does not get a haircut, his Nazirus is not over. So then toch milos he. Well, then that means that if they already offered the korbanos, but he hasn't yet gotten a haircut, and now he becomes Tameh, well, then he's still within his Nazirus, and of course he should have to start all over again. So what does it mean ein lo takon? He's got to start all over again, become a Nazir, and then that's that. Vilistor should have to start all over again. Elo aliba de rabbanon. But if we say that it is according to the rabbis, so Amr tiglachas lo ma'akeves. But the rabbis say that you don't need to get a haircut. Meaning, once you offer the korbanos, you're no longer a Nazir. So if he becomes Tameh now, why does it? He's already done with his Nazirus. So the Olam Aliba de Rabbanon, really we're saying it is according to the rabbis, and once he brings his korbanos, he's no longer a Nazir. What does it mean? There's no way for him to fix this situation. Ein lo takana mitzvahs giluach. He loses out on getting the haircut, the mitzvah of getting a haircut, right? A Nazir offers korbanos, gets a haircut, does the whole thing. But if between getting a haircut and offering his korbanos he became Tamei Meis, well then he can't do this mitzvah of getting the haircut. And he's no longer a Nazir because he already offered his korbanos. According to rabbis, you don't have to, even if you don't get your Nazir haircut, you're no longer a Nazir. But he won't be able to get his haircut anymore, so he loses out on that mitzvah. Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina says Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina Nazir shekal lo yamav, a Nazir who his days are up. Right? He says he's going to be a Nazir for 30 days. 30 days are up. He finished, but he hasn't yet offered his korbanos, so wrapped up his nazirs. Loka alatuma. If he becomes tmei meis, he'll get malchus. I guess if he does it intentionally. Ve'enu loka ala tiglachas v'lo ala yain. But if he gets a haircut or if he drinks wine, he would not get malchus. Ma'ishno tuma diloki. 1 second, why does he only get lashes for if he becomes tmei meis intentionally? Damar Krazi, because the pasuk says, Kol yimei haziro la'Hashem, that all of the days that he is a nazir to God, l'rabos yom shalachar melos, yom shlifnei melos, to include even the days after his days are up. If that's the case, atiglachas nami l'chayv, he should also be chayv when it comes to getting a haircut. Kol yimei neder nizor tarli avar al rosho. It says all of the days that he is a nazir, he can't get a haircut. Lasos yom shalachar melos ki yom shlifnei melos. When it says kol yimei, all of the days, it's to say that even after he's done with his days of being a nazir, but he hasn't yet wrapped it up with korbanos and everything. So I should say that he should also get malchus if he gets a haircut, v'su, and more. So kol yimei nizro mikol asher you also be gefen hayayin. Lasos yom shalachar melos ki yom shlifnei melos. It also says kol yimei nizro in the context of the wine also. So if we're going to say that he gets lashes for tumas hameis, he should also get lashes if he drinks wine or if he gets a haircut. So shayni achad amakra v'timei rosh nizro misha nizro talui birosho. So we say, yeah, but when it says in the context of tumah, it says v'timei rosh nizro, meaning even a nazir who his days are up, he's been a nazir for long enough, but he still needs to get a haircut. If he becomes tamei, then he's going to get lashes. But meisveh, we have a kasha, nazir shekal lo yamav, that a nazir that his days are up, until he brings his korbanos and gets his haircut properly, so he can't get a haircut, he can't drink wine, he can't become tmei meis, and if he does, so if we say Iltaka get malchus, so we see that a nazir that his days are up, if he says he's going to be nazir for 30 days are over, and he drinks wine or becomes tmei meis or gets a haircut, he will get lashes. Friends, that was daf Yud Daled of Masechta Nazir. We learned an interesting Mishnah about a guy who says that he is going to be a Nazir, and he's going to be a Nazir when his son, if he has a son. So first he becomes a Nazir now, and then he becomes a Nazir when his son is born, even if his son is born in the middle of his initial Nazirs. But if he says he's going to be a Nazir when his son is born, and also a regular Nazir, so he starts being a regular Nazir now, and if his son is born in the middle of the term, he interrupts it, and then finishes it afterwards, and he gets a haircut after all of that stuff. And then we learned about in a situation where he would, if he says he's going to be a Nazir starting in 20 days from now, but he's also going to be a Nazir now for 100 days, so we said he'll be a Nazir now for 20 days, and then for 30 days of his Nazirs, and then for the remaining 80 days. We saw machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about if in the situation where a fellow says he's going to be a Nazir when his son is born, and he's also going to be a Nazir now, and in the middle of him being a Nazir now, his son is born, and then he becomes tmei meis while in the Nazirs for his son. Rabbi Yochanan says he's got to start all over again. Rish Lakish says that no, only the Nazirs for his son he has to start all over again, but the initial Nazirs is intact. We saw the same machlokes as well if he's a Nazir and then it becomes a Metzora, right, and then he becomes Tmei Meis. Rabbi Yochanan would say he would have to start counting the Naziris over again. Rish Lakish says he would not. And we talked about, right, that a Nazir, in order to get a haircut, would have to have 30 days of growth. And we talked about that if a sunflower guy comes and cuts his hair, and there isn't, so now there's less than 30 days left to his Naziris, and he has to extend his Naziris while he waits for 30 days of growth. Then the shaila was, what if he becomes Tamei during those 30 days? Rav says that he has to start, that he would not have to start all over again. Shmuel says that Hitaka would have to start all over again. Then we also talked about what if he drinks wine or gets a haircut or becomes Tmei Meis after the days of his Nazir are over, but he hasn't yet offered his karbanos and wrapped it up. And we saw a brayso that says that he would get malchus. Friends, that was Daf Yud Daled of Masechta Nazir. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out. Bye.